You know, it always struck me as odd how you have to wear a tie to work every day if you're working like a white-collar job, or even if you're working like a blue-collar job, you've got to be nice and presentable. Even if what you're doing is manual labor, it's counterintuitive, it's counterproductive, and honestly, it gets in the way. It makes you feel dirty. It makes you feel like you're getting dirty even though you're supposed to be looking fancy, presentable, nice, and it just doesn't ever really make sense to me. I'm sorry, you know. It just always kind of struck me as odd, like I said. It's something that everybody has to do if you want to make it in this world, but if you want to just do your own thing, that's what you got to work towards. If you really want to make anything of yourself, you got to be like, okay, so I'm a man and I'm going to go out and like start my own business, or maybe I'm going to like start cutting down trees and selling the lumber, or I'm going to go down to the river, catch some fish and sell them at the local farmer's market every single day, even though those fish, they live in a polluted river, creek, stream, tributary, whatever you may have, and because of that, it's hard to know whether or not they're quality fish, and you have to just kind of make it your own thing. And I don't know if that's a respectable way to go about doing things, but I mean, what do I know? I don't own my own business yet, and that is a thing that I will do someday, but not today. Like I said, I own my own warehouse, and that's something that I'm proud of, but the problem with that one is that it's not my name, and although I have no liability for it, I am responsible if anything ever would have come down on the warehouse and the trucks that we ship out every single day. It would come down on me, and I'd have to deal with the consequences. I'd have to deal with the lashback, and you know what? I think we should go ahead and start this episode right now. So, hey, welcome to SparkleDart. You're familiar with the concept of the show. It's where I do this thing where I talk about fucking nothing for 12, 14, 80 minutes at a time, and then you just sit there and go, I agree with that. I agree with you completely. I think that you're right, and I think that you're making a good point. Now listen, I'm going to take a sip real quick. I apologize, that was a little more than a sip. Oh no, come on. Okay, so we're going to get started. So a little while back, there's a graffiti artist who operates out of London, I believe. His name is Banksy, and he makes all sorts of weird political graffitis, arts, and street performances. He's more of a performer than anything. You know, he's probably a nice guy. Nobody ever really knows what he looks like because he's very secretive and he's very non-confrontational, I guess. He likes to keep his identity remained anonymous. They thought they caught him a while back, but it turns out that they actually did not do so. So what actually wound up happening was Banksy opened up a quote-unquote theme park in, I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was a quote-unquote theme park. The name was Dismal Land, and I'm sure you can understand what sort of reference that is made in reference to. Sorry for jumbling over my words. I just woke up not too long ago, and it's time for me to stretch my wings and fly, is the saying, I believe. So Mr. Banksy, he made this graffiti tag park where it's all like, this is the negative effects of capitalism and the sorts of economies that we live in these days, whereby people get ahead only by stepping on other people and making their own living off of the suffering of others. And because of that, it's very ripe for parody. You know, it's something that people like to poke jabbies at and make funnies of. So Banksy's like, well, I got this great idea. I'm going to open up a theme park, or it's more of an outdoor museum, I guess would be a better term for the project in question, Dismal Land. Now there was one I remember. It was like a poke at SeaWorld or whatever because of their gratuitous use of tiny, small tanks for large black fish. If you ever saw the documentary Blackfish, it's about an orca whale at SeaWorld named Tillicum, and what this orca whale did what he wound up doing was he killed one of his trainers, and I think he severely injured another one of his trainers, and they're like, well, this killer whale was captured when he was only a couple months old, and he's been in captivity for like 45 years. If you don't know killer whales, they last a long time in captivity because, you know, the giant animals but they're very resilient, you know. They're not like squids or octopuses or fish or hedgehogs or gerbils, which just drop like flies if they're not like presented with the appropriate sort of conditions. Like gerbils in the wild, they live on top of wood shavings and like pencil shavings and like gross seeds and carrots and stuff like that they shove in their mouths and walk around with their cheeks full of fat. Like it's like funny to them, but they think it's like a joke or something. And I don't think it's so as funny as these gerbils like to think that it is. They're having a real good yuck to themselves. They're going yuck, yuck, yuck. And I'm like, gerbils, you got to understand that what you're doing, it might look funny, but as far as actual comedic like merit goes, there's no substance there, you know. Like other gerbils can't see you doing this, so you can't like talk to you unless you got like another gerbil inside of your gerbil cage. In which case they would be talking to each other because they got their own little gerbil language that you can't understand because you're a human being. And you know what? Human beings evolved to understand everything in this world except for how animals communicate with each other because we're smart and we're fast. We got long legs like Usain Bolt, and we just got. I think actually what it might be is the thumbs. You know, we got those thumbs that are like click clack, and they click and they clack, and they use tools and stuff, and they, you know, we just kind of made this world into our own little thing, and we live here. And if any animals want to live here with us, they got to live by our rules because that's how we do things now. Now there used to be such a thing as like an apex predator, like a predator inside of a like an ecosystem that is responsible for most of the being on top of the food chain, I guess I would say. But what actually wound up happening is that humans inhabited the entire Earth, so now we're the dominant species all over the place. In every single ecosystem, every ecological niche, we're on top. And if that's right or if that's not right, I could never tell you for sure because, I mean, the whole point of life is to thrive and persevere, right? So if you if you were to back out of an ecosystem, then you're basically backing out of real estate. It's free real estate, Jim, so you got to know how to play your cards right. You got to know how to I guess basically just make the ecosystem your own, change it into like a growing. Perspiring means to sweat, so that's not quite the word that I meant to say, but that's the word I'm going to use. The perspiring ecosystem that you live in, you know, it's a good place. You gotta just understand that. And if you don't understand that, and you think that we should give back the ecosystem to the rest of the animals, I guess you might have a point. I mean, there are wildlife reservations like that one up in Alaska, the ANWR, the Alaska National Wildlife Reserve, which is a nice place, but the thing is I want to drill for oil there because there's a lot of crude oil underneath that polar ice cap, if you catch my drift. So, I mean, oil's important for our country because that's basically you got your DuPonts and you got your Olmecs and your whatever else they got up there in the oil kingdom. So, I mean, it's important for us, and that's how we keep ourselves alive. That's how we stimulate our economy as well as the rest of the world's. And, I mean, just, you know, have fun, but be smart about how much fun you have, I guess, would be what I would take away from this point. Now, here's the thing, actually, and this is something I always thought was kind of weird, was why we can't, like, make cars and stuff that don't run on oil, because oil's actually, as far as emissions go, very bad for the environment. Now, the environment is something that I think that we shouldn't be taken for granted. And the thing about that is that we only have the one environment, as I always say, we only have one Earth, the one Earth policy. So I guess we just got to be smart about what we do, but if we're not smart about what we do, then we're going to eventually run ourselves into the ground. We're going to destroy our Earth and our ecosystem and pollute the ozone with all sorts of carbon emissions and glow sticks and silly string. So we can't have that. That's a little too excessive, in my opinion, for us to be doing that, because I think that silly string, although very silly, as the name would imply, it is very dangerous if you breathe in those chemicals from the silly string, even though it's string and not gas. It's solid and not a gas. But sometimes solid can be a gas if that solid is funny, like fecal matter. Fecal matter is real funny, you know. That's how they always tell it on the television, on the jokes. They tell jokes about feces, and it's like, that's a riot. I'm gonna slap my knee. I'm gonna give it a couple yucks here and there and all around the square. And sometimes you just gotta be diligent about what you laugh at, because sometimes humor can affect also the zeitgeist that we live in the world that we live in. And if everybody thinks that things like poop is funny, then we're going to wind up living in the movie Idiocracy, which is a good movie, and they played that on Comedy Central every single day in the 1990s and the 2000s, alongside that Eddie Murphy film Coming to America, where he stars a Nigerian prince who's not out to get your bank account number, because back then there was no such things as emails taking over our method of conversation. Now, emails is something I always thought was absolutely amazing, because emails is something that didn't exist up until 1993, probably before that, but that was when the internet first became mainstream use. People the run-of-the-mill average Joe like you and me and Vince Vaughn, get it? You get it? Had access to the internet, so we could do all sorts of things like that. We could go on the internet and download pornography and stuff like that. And they had a website way back then called whitehouse.com, and now the actual White House website, I believe, is whitehouse.gov. But some sneaky man registered whitehouse.com, and he was all like, I'm going to turn this into a porn website, so if anybody wants to come here and they think it's a legitimate website, then they'll see naked women on their computer screens, and then if they're sitting around the mothers or something, their mom will be like, you gotta turn that off. That's, if you look at that stuff, we might get arrested at our house, and we don't want that. We don't want a SWAT team coming in and taking over our house and just making our lives unpleasant and unbearable and not so fun as you might think that might be to look at porn for a little while. You could just get a magazine. First of all, Jeremy, you're not you're under 18 and you can't be looking at that stuff. I know that you have to be 18 to buy Hustlers and Playboys, and Playboys, that's something we can talk about. And because of that, I feel like maybe you shouldn't be looking at this stuff, So thank you for watching my SparkleDart. I hope you come back again soon, because we're going to have more fun. So goodbye. Mwah.